Hello once again from the Prim Reaper. I'm not gonna lie, I think this is probably the video in this series I've been most excited to work on because I think it is such an interesting topic and there's so much of it that really speaks to me personally. To what am I referring? I'm referring to the increasingly common tendency in the social justice world to take the idea of weakness and inferiority and place it on a pedestal, to take a twisted view of humanity that focuses not on one's achievements and strengths, but instead to lift people above their peers based on the number of ways in which they are supposedly oppressed. To take harmful, self-indulgent, and lazy behaviors and view them through a lens of rose-colored glasses that somehow turns them into actions and anthems of empowerment. To begin with, I'd like to provide some examples of behaviors I've been seeing more and more often. One such trend involves people sharing these edgy, you go girl style of messages. You know, the kinds of messages that look like they're all about self-empowerment, but are really just trying to put a positive spin on otherwise bad or harmful behaviors. A good first example is this one woman smugly conflating being a good leader, a task that often involves being a strong listener and compromising with other people, with being bossy. But this is hardly the only example. There are a ton of examples of people proudly holding up some example of a bad behavior or character trait that is either demonstrably unpleasant for other people to be around or demonstrably bad for one's health, and portraying it in this unusually empowering or positive light. Another example of a behavior I've seen recently is in people sharing their mental disorders, among other things, in their social media profiles and bios. Some will share veritable checklists of such concerns, presented in many cases as being key factors of their personality. Many of these people will also share their sexualities in this manner as well, which could at very least be seen as a useful tool in helping others to discover if such individuals would be a suitable match or not. You know, if you can get past all of the red flags they so proudly and publicly wave. However, I would doubt very much if any of these folks are sharing this information with the intention of attracting partners. I suspect it is far more likely, based on the context, that it is intended to attempt to secure a place on the totem pole of intersectionality. You see this kind of thing in people who fixate on other immutable characteristics such as race as well. I'm not just meaning the people who show pride in their heritage, but rather the people who focus on race as though it is a permanent barrier that holds them back in life. Or worse, someone who focuses on the race of others as though it is a permanent barrier that holds them back in life. Now, I don't want to bury the lead by focusing too much on providing too many examples right off the get-go. After all, I think that in the examples I have already discussed, there are several different behavior tendencies being demonstrated, and I want to take some time to go through them in a systematic way. I think first that there is a theme that stems from the last video on divisiveness and intersectionality, which is that some people are better off than others in a variety of ways, while other people are more underprivileged, more oppressed. As this theory has grown in popularity, there is this growing tendency to want to give more weight to the voices of the people who are supposedly less privileged in society. People are told, if not directly, that their opinions are irrelevant because they are a member of a privileged class, then at least that they should step back and make room for the voices of those in the oppressed class. So what we end up with is kind of an inverse social structure, where the more oppressed you are, the more weight your opinions carry, and the more seriously you are taken. At least in social justice circles, that is. So you can see how this kind of prioritizing of the voices of the oppressed could lead to a few predictable tendencies in others. Many, if not most, people want to have their voices heard and to feel important or like they matter in the grand scheme of things. So, if we have this overarching theme that those who are more oppressed have more social currency, then many people will feel compelled to highlight the things about them that place them as far away from the privileged category as possible. So, in the examples I've already provided, we see that this often takes the form of highlighting one's weaknesses, illnesses, challenges, or anything else they can showcase that drags them toward the outer rings of the privilege chart. What then winds up happening is that the more this becomes the social norm, The more people around them begin to do it and normalize it, the more these weaknesses move to the forefront of an individual's personality. Eventually, these things become perceived not merely as facets of who they are, but rather become who they are. People lose sight of what it means to have a personality separate from their maladies, the aspects of themselves that grant them worth in the eyes of others. Now, here is where things begin to get a little bit more interesting, because there are a few divergent responses that go on from here. First, you may have individuals that fully treat these weaknesses like massive burdens that they experience in a negative way at all times, thereby intensifying their victim status and justifying their demands for the attention of those around them. It's really not far off from the damsel in distress trope. I'm completely helpless and at the mercy of those around me. On the other hand, you have the individuals that lean into these weaknesses and try to challenge the idea that they are weaknesses in the first place. They may do this by trying to normalize them, make them appear more relatable, or, as in the images I presented at the beginning of this video, try to glamorize them or make them seem more empowering. This may seem bizarrely antithetical to the goal of trying to hold up one's weaknesses in order to give their voices more weight, i.e., by turning the weaknesses into strengths, but I think there is a solid reason behind it. By making these things appear more empowering, it then removes the impetus for people to want to work to improve upon them. See, a person with the desire to want to control others around her, who has difficulty managing her anger, or who lacks empathy for others, she's not a horrid asshole of a woman, she's got leadership potential. If you've got mental health conditions that impact your social skills and the ability to relate to others, the moment they become a point of personal pride, the onus shifts to everyone else to deal with your difficulties rather than you. Many people who are overweight find it very difficult to try to lose weight, right? What if you never had to? Because it's perfectly fine to be overweight. Beauty is a social construct and all that jazz. It's different from someone who engages in the practice of restoring their life to take a positive spin on a previously negatively perceived aspect of their life in order to take control of their mindset. In this case, it's almost like the opposite. For as much as it looks like trying to look at something in a positive way, it's often born out of a sense of giving up. Self-improvement is too hard, so I'm going to convince myself I'm happy with myself exactly the way I am, unexamined flaws and all. In this way, you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. You can be a member of an underprivileged class of people, so your voice still holds social power, but you can also reject any criticism that might then lead to those pesky feelings of self-reflection or a desire for improvement and personal growth. Not only that, but people who try to tell you to change are now squarely putting themselves in the oppressor position that you can leverage to showcase exactly how oppressed you are. I think an amusing example of this was in the recent debacle where Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life was held up as something that the Red Skull would say. His messages are often messages of self-responsibility and personal strength. Look at some of the 12 rules, for example. Treat yourself like you are someone you are responsible for helping. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. It is easy for someone in this victim mindset to take this and turn it into something oppressive. You can't tell me to work on myself and focus on self-improvement. This isn't just a personal flaw, it's my entire personality. I am my weaknesses. And so it becomes not a message of strength, but a deeply felt personal attack. Rather than build themselves up through self-improvement, those who hold this mantle of weakness often take another path. Let me try and see if I can demonstrate it with an example. Young Prim. Awkward, ugly, unconfident, regularly bullied by others. Now, let's say that young Prim talks to two people with very different approaches to handling this subject. I just don't know how to break out of this situation. I feel like I'm constantly getting bullied, and I feel like a useless human being that nobody likes. You've been victimized by the people around you. Of course you feel horrible. You've been picked on for things you can't control, and that's probably going to stay with you for a long time. There should really be more rules in place to stop people from acting like that so people never have to go through this. Why don't you use your experiences as a bullying victim to push for change? Hey, I get it. Bullying sucks. It's really awful that people are being that way to you. Nobody should have to go through that. But hey, since you have gone through it, have you ever tried to reframe it to see how you can turn it to your advantage? What do you mean? Well, restory it a little bit. Think about some of the things that you might have learned from your experiences. Wit.
Yeah. Hey, mom's a whore.
Did she sleep with you too? Argumentation skills. Yeah, sure, I may be a loser, but have you considered the fact that it takes one to know one? Self-reflection. Maybe I did kind of bring some of this bullying on myself when I beaked off online to the wrong person. Social skills. Hey, I just wanted you to know I really behaved like a jerk when I said what I did, and I'm really sorry about that. Of course, bullying is never a fun thing to have to go through, and like I said, nobody should have to go through it. But it sounds like, when you try and think about it in a different light, you can actually kind of take away a lot from it, can't you? See, rather than a theme of personal development and growth, as highlighted in the latter example, there is often this narrative of strengthening one's victimhood and demanding that everyone else change to be more accommodating. Sure, it can feel nice and soft and comfortable if it happens to work, but it often doesn't lay the groundwork for being able to adapt to new situations which you might not always be able to control. Just going to add this little section post-recording here, just for any mouth breathers out there who are determined to deliberately misinterpret what I'm saying. I am not saying that bullying is an acceptable thing for people to do or that we shouldn't work to fight it within reason. Gentle reminder that these skits are meant to be tongue-in-cheek but mostly good faith examples of things I have seen. But I am saying there is a difference between coming at a problem externally and coming at a problem internally to try to build up strengths within the individual rather than make the issue something out of their reach that they may not be able to control. The example I provided legitimately is something that happened to me, and all of these examples, the traits, not the goofy video samples I recorded, are things I developed as a result of my experiences, to say nothing of learning a little humility, personal restraint, and how to roll with the punches. Took a lot of self-reflection to realize how much I developed through those awful, awful struggles, and now I feel like a much stronger person because I was able to look internally and find the good side of it. I wasn't going to include this disclaimer originally, but, well, you'll see in the next video. In this vein, you will regularly see people actively resist any notion of self-improvement or the idea that whatever weakness they're struggling with is something that they can take charge of and control. In some cases, this will be because they have made that thing a part of themselves and in doing so have made themselves a slave to it, or because they have harnessed it and turned it into a positive element of their identity. Or because not everyone has equal capability to change, and therefore by expecting other people to change, you're being an oppressive bigot. After all, you can't possibly know how I experience my own life, and therefore you can't speak to my experiences at all anyway. In these latter examples, there almost always seems to be this smug superiority that comes with tearing down a supposed oppressor. For once, they get to feel powerful, speaking from an unassailable position where no one else dares to tread. On the other hand, some people don't even experience it as tearing someone else down, they experience it as building themselves up. Think about someone who educates a white male classmate in why he should let others speak before him. Sure, someone like this might be getting their jollies off of exercising power over the powerful, but they may legitimately feel like they are speaking truth to power, overcoming a negative force in the world, i.e. oppression, and feel like they are defending those who are too weak to defend themselves. This not only entrenches them in their own position of weakness, but it may result in other people also falling into that victim narrative as well. So, there are many ways that the process of privileging weakness and victimhood reinforces itself, both through solidifying weakness as a personality in and of itself, through experiencing challenges as personal attacks, and through validating itself by tearing down oppressors and recruiting others into the victimhood mentality. And because it is so self-reinforcing in so many ways, it can be really difficult to break someone out of this mindset. I truly do find it to be one of the most insidious aspects of the social justice realm. One of the most important things I stand for as a counselor is the ability to give someone strength, self-confidence, and increased ability to control the way they lead their lives. Quintessentially, I believe that psychology should be all about giving power to the individual, to help them take charge of the way they see and experience their thoughts, their emotions, and their lives. This idea that certain groups are inherently less privileged than others, and that they therefore deserve to have their voices heard on that fact alone. The idea that weakness, illness, and oppression should come to define a person's life and personality. The idea that self-improvement can be seen as an oppressive personal attack. It's all antithetical to the way I want to practice with people, and I'm distressed at how common a mindset it has become. Anyway, I'm going to end this video here. There are still several topics in this series I'm wanting to cover, and I'm not sure yet which one I'll do next, but either way, there's still plenty more where this came from. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.